Gentlemen, Father's Day is just around the corner, and our friends at Manscaped are here to ensure all the father figures out there are looking like daddy material this June. Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0, which includes their signature lawnmower 4.0, is the perfect bundle to tackle any and all old man hair from head to toe. This right here is no dad joke. Treat him and yourself and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with their exclusive offer. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code DTR at manscaped.com. Trust me, him and his dad bod will thank you. All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host, Jake Ellenbogen. And we are back, guys, after somewhat of a hiatus after the draft. We did do an episode, Jake, where we discussed the Rams draft picks, but then since that episode, we've kind of been on a break, which is what happens after the draft. We kind of go 150% during the draft with our interviews, and then we interviewed some of the Rams draft picks and UDFAs, and then we took a break. We took a few weeks to breathe, but now we're back. We got a lot to talk about, Jake, and I think it's only fitting that we start the show off by talking about Aaron Donald's contract rework, I guess I should call it. You and I were talking about this a little bit off air because it's not an extension. It's basically a raise, Jake. Aaron Donald basically got a $40 million raise in a restructured contract. So what are your thoughts on that? And I'll give my opinion after this. Do you think that after this 2-year deal, he's going to retire for good?
Yeah, I do. I think this was just basically the Rams thanking Donald for everything he's done, giving him that raise. It doesn't really help the Rams in any sense. I mean, I know, some people out there are like, well, they're saving, $1 or $2 million in cap. It was not a cap move. It was a, hey, okay, Donald, you win. We want you to come back. We know you're close to retiring, or at least you're telling us that. So let's get you signed up and let's get you 40 million, up front. And no, that's pretty much what it was. I mean, it's well deserved. Obviously, I mean, the guy is the best player in all football. He's maybe the greatest player of all time, and it's. I have my thoughts on it, and as a lot of people that follow, DTR, my channel, just my, Twitter, and I think Alexis, you have an idea of where I'm going with this. It's more so like the Stafford deal, the Kupp deal. Those were more like, I feel like Cooper Kupp could have gotten over $30 million if he absolutely wanted to push the Rams. Matthew Stafford obviously could have gotten paid more. And this is kind of the one where it's not really about the whole Tom Brady, idea of taking less money so the team can really prosper. It's really, this was about Aaron Donald getting his money. And again, like he deserves it as far as the level of play and just the skill set he possesses. But I don't think by any stretch, like when people were celebrating, I get it. Okay, he's back. I really wasn't entirely sure if he'd be back or not, but I never thought that he was retiring just to retire. I felt like it was entirely like money driven. So I guess celebrating because he's going to be back and, this is all taken care of. That's one thing. But like, I wasn't really celebrating him getting more money. Like, yeah, sure, he earned it. But like the guy that I was really celebrating, Alexis, was Cooper Kupp, because this is somebody that just had the greatest season in the history of receivers in the NFL. I mean, I don't care what anyone says. You look at, combining the postseason, it's the greatest year in NFL history for a wide receiver, and maybe one of the greatest seasons ever for a position. I mean, just what he was able to do, over 2,400 yards, 22 touchdowns. It was just incredible. And it was when the Rams needed him to do that. And plus, we see many times guys have really good, statistics, and they put up really good numbers. But, as much as I love Calvin Johnson, I'm going to be honest with you, the year he had all those yards, it didn't really mean anything. They didn't win a playoff game. They didn't win a Super Bowl. Cooper Kupp needed to do everything he did in order for the Rams to win a Super Bowl. So, that I was more excited for Cooper Kupp. Not really that I wasn't excited for Aaron Donald, not that I wasn't happy for him, but more so I felt like Cooper Kupp really earned it and, took his, play from here to like up here. I mean, now we're talking about him as one of the best receivers, whereas Aaron Donald, he already was being paid heavily, and he is one of, He was already, the best player in the league, and it's not like that really changed. So that was really my thoughts on that. But, I'm glad all of it's taken care of, and now they can really focus on OBJ.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I feel really similarly.
That'll work.
We're that
I know
works.
what you mean.
About the Aaron Donald contract. And listen, Aaron Donald is my favorite player on the Rams. He's been my favorite player in the Rams since he was drafted. Uh, I think he can do no wrong in my eyes. However, like you said, I think that there is kind of like this weird energy about this new contract and this rework. And I think it has to go into the fact that, he was, I don't want to say threatening retirement because I think he actually would have. I think it came down to, he got the Super Bowl win, which is what he wanted. And, he was at peace, I think, with leaving if he wasn't going to play for the money. So I think that maybe some people are rubbed the wrong way because it's like he just came back for the money. Um, Nobody knows that but him. I love Aaron Donald. I would never put words in his mouth, but I will say the way that the whole thing played out, I understand where people are coming from, where it like wasn't probably the best look, as we're going to talk about in a second, the Cooper Cup extension, where he definitely could have gotten more money and he took less and he had the season he did last year. But then again, it's like Aaron Donald's, the best defensive player of all time. So can we really be mad at him for wanting the bag? I mean, I think it just depends on how people personally feel about, you know, how players handle the contract and everything. And I will say he did sign with Donda Sports and Kanye West. And when he did that, I knew something like this was going to happen.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not complaining because I'm just happy Aaron Donald's back and he's going to retire Ram. That was what I wanted. I want him to be a Ram forever, which he is going to be because, like you said, I do think that he is going to retire when his contract is up. I don't see another extension because, like I said, I think he was ready to walk away now. And, now he's getting an extra $40 million. And he's like, all right, I'll play a couple more seasons, but I really think he'll be gone after that. And even if he's not, I never foresee him leaving the Rams, to be honest. I
Yeah,
don't
I don't
ever
see it either.
see him wanting to leave the Rams, and I don't ever see the Rams letting that happen. like again, the money that they just gave him. I don't ever see the Rams being like, you know what, we'll let Aaron Donald walk until he's like really done, like and retiring. So yeah, just happy he's back. And I was really sad. I would have been really sad if he had retired after the Super Bowl. So I'm glad he's back. But let's talk about Cooper Cup because he also got, well, he actually got an extension through 2026, I believe. He got a
Helps the
3 year,
Rams. Yeah,
helps the,
not the voided years in his contract. Like Aaron Donald, it's a rework, but they added 2 years of void years, so he will not play those 2 years. Those are just like ways to balance out the deal. But Cooper Cup is essentially an extension. And,
mhm.
on a 2-year deal, you add 3 years onto that deal, for 75 million. I mean, yeah, it's 25 million. That's a lot of money. But when you think of like Tyreek Hill just getting paid 30, and so much so, like, he forced himself out of Kansas City. I mean, that's the thing I don't think that's talked about enough here. Like, if the Rams had a Tyreek Hill, they might be in some trouble because you see it like today. We're recording this, on a Sunday, and it's Terry McLaurin, right? McLaurin's not even going to show up to camp because of how slow negotiations are going. This all goes back to when Christian Kirk got paid over $20 million by the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we've seen it more than any year in the past. We have seen this effect where he gets paid this money and now, $28 million is now worth more than that, and so these receivers like a Devontae Adams who forced his way out of Green Bay, or Tyreek Hill, like we already mentioned, Cooper Cup gets paid. We're talking about Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf isn't showing up in camp. Like, the Rams and Rams fans need to realize how lucky they are that the Rams have Cooper Cup and not a DK Metcalf, because Metcalf would not be in camp right now. Metcalf you would need to pay, and he would be not looking at 25 million and kind of a restructured deal in a sense that would help out the team, but more so looking out for himself. This would be his first big contract. He'd be going for 30 million. It's very easy to negotiate because Tyreek Hill's younger. And then you have DK Metcalf, who's really young. I mean, we literally covered the draft that he was in. So you have these guys like a Metcalf that's like, hey, I'm 23, 24 years old. Like, I'm worth more than Cooper Cup because I'm going to be around a hell of a lot longer. And if he's getting paid 25 at age 30 or whatever, I want to get paid, 30, 33 at age 24. And I think that's fair. And so I'm just glad they're not in that situation because that could have gotten ugly. And where they're at right now, winning a Super Bowl, trying to run it back, so to speak, they can't have that. And so getting Stafford taken care of, Donald, Cooper Cup, now they can focus on bringing back OBJ. And if they don't bring back OBJ, maybe they make a trade for like a Robert Quinn halfway through the year. But for the most part, this is the roster and they're ready and they're equipped to win another Super Bowl. And I think they know that.
Well, and that is what I wanted to talk about next is the OBJ situation.
Yeah.
Because we see the Rams dishing out all these contracts, and everyone's like, "When is it OBJ's turn?" Because we all want Odell Beckham back, and Odell Beckham has made it very clear on social media he wants to be back on the Rams. He wants to be back on the Rams, but he will not come back to the Rams unless they give him a contract that he thinks is fair. He hasn't said what that number is. We don't know what that number is. We don't know what those conversations are, but we do know, and this should be a good thing for Rams fans. Look at this in a positive way, that he wants to be back. He wants to be back on the Rams. He just has a number again that we don't know that he wants, and so the ball is really in the Rams' court in this situation. And you and I have talked about this, and I know that we pretty much agree that the Rams, it's up to them. There's a number that they need to meet for Odell Beckham Jr. I have to assume that Odell Beckham is not asking for a number he knows the Rams can't meet because that makes zero sense. So Odell Beckham and whoever his agent is, they know what the Rams can do. They know what the Rams can't do, and they're just waiting. So I think it's really up to the Rams to decide, do we want to take maybe what they perceive as a risk with Odell Beckham because of that injury? Do we want to take that risk and give him that contract, or do we want to move on? We got Allen Robinson, we have Cooper Cup, we are going to need Van Jefferson to really step up this year, and then a guy like Tutu Atwell is going to also have to step up because the reality is Odell Beckham's not going to be back. I think the earliest that he could come back, for an injury like that would be November, late November, and it might be longer because it's the second time that he's torn the specific ACL. So that's, really interesting. And I think, a 1 year contract because of that injury doesn't make sense because you could be giving Odell Beckham Jr. a 1 year contract and he can't play the whole year. His knee takes too long to heal. So I think it's got to at least be a 2 year contract, to make sure that you're going to be able to have him on the field. So, Jake, do you expect Odell Beckham Jr. to be back on the Rams? Because I do. I do expect him to be back. I think that you know, the Rams fans know that we do not win the Super Bowl without Odell Beckham Jr. We just don't. Cooper Cup had an amazing year. Yes, he did. But we lost Robert Woods. And when we lost Robert Woods, Odell Beckham came in and stepped up and played amazing. Played amazing in the Super Bowl until he had that, just absolutely still blows my mind that that injury ever happened. I mean, just absolutely horrible. Scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. We don't win the Super Bowl quite literally without Odell Beckham Jr. And I think that the Rams are aware of that. And I think we all know what he can do when he's super healthy. So that's my opinion on it. Jake, do you think that the Rams are going to bring Odell Beckham Jr. back? And if so, when do you think that they get that deal done?
I do, and I think it's gonna be like I could see it be in August. I could even see it in September. I mean, they're in no hurry because they gotta see, they gotta see Odell, they gotta see, where he's at. They're definitely going to be in touch with him and the training staff there. And I just think it's such a different contract than what we're used to, right? You normally don't go into negotiations like this because normally you don't get to the Super Bowl, right? Not only two teams get to the Super Bowl every year. So normally you're not at the Super Bowl. And then on top of that, normally you're not talking about a player who just tore his ACL who's going into a contract off season in the Super Bowl. And so there's a lot of dynamics here, a lot of different dynamics here. And I just feel like Odell kind of understands the whole process. He's been very, outspoken about how he knows, it's a business. And He's coming off a brutal injury, his second ACL tear, his fourth brutal injury in his career. And so the Rams obviously want him back, but it's a matter like if you're not going to be back until November and late November at that, then we're really looking at you for not even a full year. And so, yeah, you give him a 1 year deal, but you probably want to add another one on top of it, maybe a team option, which that could be a holdup there because, a lot of the time these players want a player option. And so sometimes it's not as simple as that, and I think something like this, the Rams also have to kind of find like where they're going to be with their roster, like when it comes down to cut day. See, signing Odell could also change how they view their roster too, because maybe there's a guy who's on the cusp of making the roster, but he's got a bigger contract than the other guy. And so they use that as the tiebreaker and they cut the guy who has the bigger contract because they're trying to shave off any type of money to bring back Odell. Next year won't be an issue. There's going to be a huge sum of money coming in through the Amazon TV deal. So I expect the cap to go way up. But this year is going to be an issue because the Rams are really trying to string it together right below the cap. And it's not going to be as simple as, people assume. And that also doesn't mean, and understand when I say this, I'm not saying that it's going to catch up with them and they're going to be overnight, they're going to be in hot water. What I'm saying is that the Odell contract, they're going to have to be very creative with, especially
Mhm.
because that, we all know he wants it in Bitcoin, or at least that's what he did the first time.
Mhm.
Um, Bitcoin has since gone down like 40%, but like, I don't know how that whole thing's going to work, but yeah, it's a very complicated and complex contract that they have to work over because you can't just give him a 1 year deal and then let him go next year. You probably want at least a 2 year deal. And you also just can't give him straight up this amount of money, even though skill wise he's worth this. It's the dynamic of being injured, coming back. If they pay him now, what if he has a setback the next day and now all of a sudden he's out for the whole year? Like,
Right.
that's the thing that I've been trying to explain to people who are just like, just pay him already because it's not that simple. It never is in any contract situation, but it's so delicate with Odell because we're all talking about how great it is. Like, okay, he got this ACL surgery with the Rams staff, and they're saying that they corrected something that was wrong with the first ACL surgery with Dr. James Andrews, which is honestly kind of hard to believe because he's just, world renowned as maybe the best with the ACL surgeries. But when you keep in mind all of that, you know, it just takes that one little thing where, I mean, we saw poor, Tariq Cohen was so hyped, was taking video of himself working out. And then, he goes down with an injury. I was hyped for him. I couldn't wait to see him back on the field. Now he's out for another year. This is what I'm talking about. It's like, it's the sad truth and it's the sad narrative of this business is that the Rams just don't want to be that team that paid him all this money and all of a sudden he goes down. There's player insurance and you can, obviously apply for that, but the Rams don't want to just be giving out contracts to players who are going to go down with injuries. That's not to say Odell's the only one who could, because you can go down at any point. But Odell, you already know, you watched him tear his ACL, you want him back, but just literally one thing could derail not only this season, but could derail his career. So you got to be careful with that.
Mhm. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code DTR at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code DTR. Shake what your mama gave you? Nah, shake what your daddy gave you. Well, right. And I want to stay on the topic of wide receivers because I think, you talk about Odell Beckham Jr. and the Rams kind of have to look at their receiver room, which is, like I said, Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, and Van Jefferson is kind of the big three right now. That fourth receiver spot is pretty much Tutu Atwell at this point. And so I kind of want to talk about Allen Robinson because Allen Robinson, in a way, has to replace Robert Woods and Odell Beckham Jr. That's a lot of pressure because, I know a lot of people, and including myself, were and still are a little skeptical about that contract gave Allen Robinson. For me, I've watched Allen Robinson, I've seen him play on the Bears, and I'll I'll come to his defense. He did not have a good quarterback for a while, but I have seen some concerning play from Allen Robinson where he's getting bullets from Justin Fields and he just looked like he didn't want to be out there and wasn't making the plays and just did not look good. So when he got this contract from the Rams, it was a little surprising because of that, but also because this the contract at the time we paid Allen Robinson before we traded Robert Woods. Which I feel like people might not remember because it kind of happened a long time ago. Not really, but it feels like a long time ago. So just a reminder, so that whole like experience, that like 48-hour experience was really crazy. But Jake, Allen Robinson comes in. What are your expectations for him? I mean, he is a very different type of receiver than a Robert Woods, a very different type of receiver than an Odell Beckham Jr. What are your expectations for him? What kind of role do you think the Rams use him in?
So this is going to blow some people away, but I think he's going to lead the league in receiving. This is somebody that coming into this year, like I understand exactly what you're saying, Alexis, because I watched him last year and I don't know if he did, but if I'm not mistaken, I think he actually did battle with COVID. I think he was one of those guys that was kind of all over, like his equilibrium was off. Like he just didn't look like the same player, right? And then there's also, stuff out there. I know Matthew Berry mentioned it, when he was previewing him for like a, fantasy football thing. And he was saying how, he seemed checked out. And it's not like I'm excusing that behavior, but now that he is with the Rams, it's like he's in a winning environment. He's around Cooper Kupp 24/7. He's got Matthew Stafford, the best quarterback he's ever been around. You know, he had 16 or I think it was 1,500 yards with Blake Bortles. So I'm looking at this guy thinking he's coming to a great system with Sean McVay. He's coming around. He's going to be around Cooper Kupp, who I think is going to be double teamed over the top this year. I think there are going to
Yeah.
be so many teams that are like, well, Allen Robinson and Cooper Kupp, it's like having two number one receivers, right? When Allen Robinson's fully healthy, he's fantastic. But you can't be that defense that looks at Cooper Kupp. He just had 2,400 yards last year. And they're like, nope, we're just going to go one on one against him. Like, you just can't do that. So now, because of that, teams are going to bracket Kupp. They're going to double team him. They're going to make it harder for him. He's still going to get his bread. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, I do think Allen Robinson is going to have the better season than Cooper Kupp. I think he's going to lead the league in receiving. I think Kupp will have more receptions. Here's how I see this going. I think they're going to find ways to get Kupp the football. So I think when Kupp gets the ball, you're looking at 125 receptions and probably around 1,500 yards, kind of similar to Allen Robinson, although I have around 1,600 to 1,700 yards because I think Allen Robinson is going to be more down the field. It's going to be easier for him to get those yards because he is not really the guy that's going to be run after the catch. They added him because they've never had anybody like him. Sean McVay, in the history of him coaching, has never had anybody like him. I think the closest guy to him and his skill set and what he brings is insert any tight end there, whether it be Tyler Higbee or Gerald Everett or any of those guys, but they do not play the ball in the air the way Allen Robinson does. So now you have Allen Robinson, who basically has this unlimited catch radius with a quarterback who, as we saw in the Super Bowl, is willing to just throw it up there and trust his teammate to go and get it. We saw, as much as I love Van Jefferson, big fan of his. He's going into year 3. I think it's going to be big for him. I think he'll have another good year, but Van Jefferson didn't go up and make that play. And that changed the course of the Super Bowl, almost cost him the whole momentum of the game. Throws the interception. You have people like, what is Stafford doing? You can't just throw it up there. Yeah, you can. And when you have Allen Robinson, you absolutely can. So now you have Robinson, and you think about all those times, Alexis, last year where I'm going to throw it up to Deshaun here. Deshaun Jackson just stares at it while it goes in the Cardinals guy's hands. Or throws it up to Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson's looking up at it. Now you put Allen Robinson in that scenario, a motivated, a rejuvenated Allen Robinson, a healthy Allen Robinson. And I'll tell you right now, as long as he stays that way, which I don't think he's going to be checked out or anything, I think it's a matter of him staying healthy. But if he does, with Matthew Stafford, he is in for a monster season. It's the closest body type he has had, Matthew Stafford, to like Kenny Galladay, Calvin Johnson, somebody like that. So this is a big deal. And it's why the Rams went out and got him. I think he fits what they're trying to do. And if you think that winning the Super Bowl last year with what they did, if you think that they should just stick to that, you haven't been paying attention to the NFL. you have to change what you're doing. And I think the Rams know everybody has that target right on the Rams' back. Everybody's out for blood to get the Rams. And the Rams know they can't just be the 24th ranked rushing attack and run the same type of offense. They can't be the team that relies on speed over the top, but can't have the guy make the contested catch. Now they have a guy that's basically a cheat code with Matthew Stafford and Allen Robinson who can make that contested catch. And as much as it pained me, because Robert Woods is by far one of my favorite players of all time, to see him go, I understood what they were doing. They were taking a player who they felt was very similar to Kupp, and instead they were going out and they were getting Allen Robinson, who was going to replace Robert Woods on the field, but replace him in a different way and add something in the offense that they previously never had. And I think they kind of showed us this when they didn't go out and promote Thomas Brown to be their OC. They went out and instead got Liam Cohen, who just had a very successful run with Kentucky. You look at what he did with Wan'Dale Robinson and those guys there. I think they want to be more pass happy in this offense. I think they're going to focus more on the deep, the big play. And I think because of that, Kupp is going to be utilized between, 8 to 12 yards, but I think you're going to see Allen Robinson making those big plays downfield, because you could tell Matthew Stafford was itching to throw the deep ball. And there were a lot of times where a receiver, couldn't run under it, didn't go up and try to high point it. And so I think now you've corrected that, and we'll see where it goes. But I expect Matthew Stafford to be well in the 5,000 range for receiving yards. And I expect Allen Robinson to lead the league in receiving.
Yeah, I think if Allen Robinson can stay healthy and he can play like he has in the past when he's been at the top of his game, he is going to have a big season. I can see what you're saying. Where Cooper Kupp, I think, is going to be double teamed most of the time this season, and it is going to open an avenue for a guy like Allen Robinson or a guy like Van Jefferson, who you mentioned, a guy who really has to prove himself this year. I think, I liked how he played last season, but I do agree that he had those moments, those big moments where he kind of dropped the ball a little bit, and that was concerning. To people, that he wasn't aggressive enough or that he didn't make the big play. So I think that he's really going to have to do that this year, especially with the absence of Odell Beckham Jr. I think he's going to be looked to make some of those plays, but I think that Allen Robinson is coming in to play that role that you said. I think that he, one on one, is going to be really interesting to see him, do that and make the big catches. But, Allen Robinson, free agent signing, Jake, the other big free agent signing that we made was Bobby Wagner, which is something that the Rams fans, excuse me, were talking about forever, wanting Bobby Wagner. Um, Listen, I wanted Bobby Wagner as well, but you and I had this conversation, I think, on another episode we did, where we're like, we want him, but the Rams just never pay linebackers. Like, we just don't want to get our hopes up because it's not the Rams' MO. They don't spend money on linebackers.
If it
Bobby,
happens, it happens, but
right.
I'm not expecting.
It
Yeah.
was like trying to not get disappointed, but like having that little ember of hope, like in our hearts, where we like really wanted him, but we're just like, let's not overdo it. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. And then they signed him, and it totally made sense. Based on our team needs, and he's going to be playing inside linebacker alongside Ernest Jones. And I have to say, Bobby Wagner, we've seen a lot of him over the years because he played for our rival, the Seahawks. He was a big part of their Legion of Boom back in the day. May it rest in peace. And now he is with the Rams and staying in the NFC West. So, Jake, how crucial do you think this signing of Bobby Wagner is? Because I think it's huge. I think he's a tone setting defensive player. We haven't had a middle linebacker like that since James Laurinaitis, in my opinion. We haven't had a middle linebacker on the Rams who's a huge leader, comes in, and maybe I don't even say not a leader, but someone who has the skill set to back it up, kind of just like a really big presence. So, what do you think the signing of Bobby Wagner means for the Rams?
I mean, the signing of Bobby Wagner is crazy because now that we know Donald is coming back, you think about what he can do. Playing behind Donald is just nuts. This guy had over 170 tackles last year. a lot of people were trying to say, oh, well, he's falling off. He's falling off. His play isn't as good. Is he going to be Bobby Wagner when he was like 27 years old? Maybe not. And that's fine. He's still one of the best, if not the best linebacker in football. He is phenomenal. And so that is one thing. Like, you're adding him to Ernest Jones. That's going to be crazy because I think the thing that kind of goes unnoticed is Ernest Jones' play in the Super Bowl was like heroic. I mean, what he was able to do as a blitzing linebacker, right up that gap and, making sure like he stopped Joe Mixon right in his tracks. Just so many different things that he was able to do. He had the huge fourth down, the turnover on down at the beginning of the game, batted pass. He just has shown this level of development, and I think he's going to be really, really good. But now there's a chance he reaches a level that I don't think we were going to see because he's now got Bobby Wagner as his mentor. And I think that's something that can be said. Wagner, it's a long term deal. He may not be there for the full deal, but this is exactly the type of guy you want in the building. He is. I'd be shocked if he's not a captain this year. Would be literally shocked. That would be one of the most shocking things if he is not voted a captain. I will not even like take it seriously. Like, it would just be nuts to me.
Yeah.
But
I haven't thought about that,
yeah.
but you're right.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that walks in the locker room and you instantly just, all the guys kind of huddle around him. Like, they respect him. I mean, he's just well liked, and he represents himself. So he's got this other level of respect and, from his peers, the fact that this guy doesn't even have an agent. He just goes and he negotiates his own deals. Um, but no, I think what Wagner's going to allow them to do is they're going to be able to be more, aggressive, I think, by having somebody that consistent. As much as, you and I like Troy Reader, we interviewed him and he's now, with the Chargers. Like, there were times where they had to be careful the way they used, Ernest Jones or a Trayvon Howard, who was unfortunately waived. But like guys like that, because of Troy Reader's shortcomings in coverage. Well, now, you have Bobby Wagner who can kind of do everything. And now, if you want to send the house and send Ernest Jones up the gut and have him blitz the quarterback and do what they did in the Super Bowl, they can do that really without worrying. Because you have him, you have, in my opinion, when you look at, the linebackers, without Trayvon Howard, it feels kind of empty, right? But what I don't think is being talked about enough is it's not really the linebackers, although I really do. I like the kid from Iowa State. I think he is going to make the roster. And also, Roseboom, I think also as well. But it's more so the safeties that they have. I think they're going to have a lot of Mark Barron-esque play from Rapp, Burgess, Scott, Fuller. They can all, jump down. If, two guys are back, one guy wants to fill in or whatever, they're going to have fun mixing and matching, I think. I mean, a lot of people seem to think Rapp is going to be the de facto pseudo linebacker, but do not rule out Burgess. Do not rule out a guy like Russ East either. I think this is his pathway to making the roster. As opposed to, I've said before, I didn't think he'd make the roster because they had too many safeties. Another guy, Quentin Lake, obviously he's our guy. I mean, I think he has the versatility to play some safety linebacker as well. So they're going to be creative ways to fill in the void for Trayvon Howard if they don't bring him back, which they absolutely could do. But Wagner this year, I think, is going to have a really good season. And I think a lot of that is because of what's in front of him. You have Aaron Donald, Greg Gaines, Ashawn Robinson. It's going to be easier. It's going to be a lot easier for him when he has that up front, or the confidence those guys have knowing that he's behind them is going to be huge. So I think it's going to work in tandem, and it's going to make this defense a hell of a lot stronger than years past. Because I'll be honest with you, if Bobby Wagner is anything like he was when he was 27 years old, we're looking at the best Rams linebacker since London Fletcher. Like, straight up. I mean, he would be the best linebacker to wear the Rams helmet since London Fletcher.
I agree. I definitely agree on that. And that, you bring up Trayvon Howard, which was kind of our last item here on the agenda in recent Rams news. Very surprising move to some for the Rams to cut Trayvon Howard, especially because he was such a big part of our playoff run last season when we won the Super Bowl. Made some pretty important plays for us. So, Jake, why do you think it is that the Rams cut Trayvon Howard? Is it to save money for potential free agent signing and an Odell Beckham Jr.? Was it a scheme thing? What, in your opinion, was the reasoning for the Trayvon Howard, uh, for him being cut? And do you think the Rams do bring him back?
I think the Rams could bring him back. He cleared waivers, so I think this week is going to be really interesting and telling in regards to that. Um, but the thing with him though is that it wasn't really a scheme thing. It's more so, he got paid the tender. The tender was over $2 million. I think it was like 2.3. And so the Rams are really just trying to shave as much money as they can. They did the same thing with Kenny Young. They got Von Miller afterwards. They do it with Trayvon Howard. They signed Cooper Kupp that night. So, it's not really a surprise to me. Um, in regards to why like they would cut him. And I also think, it does keep guys relevant, like a Taylor Rapp, who you might start to wonder where his role is on this team with how much that they've added in the back end of the secondary. So I do think that they plan on having their safeties play a little linebacker. But keep in mind, like for the most part, it's going to be one linebacker on the field. That's going to be Bobby Wagner. And when it's two, it's going to be Ernest Jones. So they're very rarely, as long as everyone stays healthy, they're very rarely going to go for a third or a fourth guy. And so that's why, as much as I really like Jake Hummel and I like Christian Roseboom, I'm not expecting to see those guys a ton early on. Although I will say, I'll go out on a limb here and say Jake Hummel has starting potential. This is somebody that you look at a Rodney McLeod in the past, you look at, guys like that, UDFAs becoming starters. Jake Hummel is that guy. So if he does become a starter down the road, don't be surprised. They spent a big bunch of money on him for the UDFAs. They gave him extra. He was one of the top tier UDFAs. So this is a guy they really see as somebody that could develop into a true starter on the defense and not just special teamer. So just keep an eye out for him. But, at the end of the day, I think there's a chance Trayvon Howard could be back anyways and could make everything I just said pretty irrelevant.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't rule out him coming back. I think we just have to see how it all shakes out. And, you made some good points about the linebacker position, but I mean, he definitely has a special place, I think, in Rams fans' hearts. I don't think anyone would be upset to see him be a Ram again.
No.
But Jake, I think that's going to do it for us. We covered pretty much all that there was to cover in breaking news with the Rams. We'll be back next week with another episode. But yeah, I mean, basically, there's just some stuff looming in the air with OBJ, Trayvon Howard. Do the Rams go out and get another free agent? Still plenty of time. We're in kind of that weird time of year where anything can happen between now and preseason. So, summer is just very unpredictable for the NFL. And we are just now focused, Jake. I know you and I on hopefully seeing the Rams repeat as Super Bowl contenders and doing everything that they can to make that happen. And it'll be really interesting to see, reports come out of OTAs and whatnot. But you and I will be back next week to discuss the rookie expectations because we know that people really want to hear our thoughts on that. What's going on with the rookies? So we'll be back. We'll dedicate a whole episode to that. But guys, as always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at Downtown Rams, and I take that back. You cannot follow us on Instagram right now. Our account is still hacked. So if you do follow us on Instagram and they're posting weird stuff, it's because our account is hacked. So for now, stick to Twitter at Downtown Rams. That's where you can find us. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Kraft. You can follow Jake at JK Bogan. We'll be back next week with another episode. But guys, until then, stay safe, take care, and go Rams. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code DTR at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. And use code DTR. Shake what your mama gave you? Nah, shake what your daddy gave you.